Global goals for noble souls, transforming our world to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger, for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water and sanitation, is it not the right of every nation? Economic growth, inclusive and sustained, through industry, innovation and infrastructure be gained. Reduce inequality for sure, make cities and human settlements safe and secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change, conserve, let below water, land, ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all, oh peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation. Global goals for noble souls, transforming our world to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger, for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water and sanitation, is it not the right of every nation? Economic growth, inclusive and sustained, through industry, innovation and infrastructure be gained. Reduce inequality for sure, make cities and human settlements safe and secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change, conserve, let below water, land, ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all, oh peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation.
Thank you so much for joining, everyone. A very good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, mate, terve, and maharapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 124 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM. An inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is a part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. For today, the conversation sits right at the intersection of something we all care about, learning, and something that we all love, that is entertainment. We're so used to thinking, of these worlds as separate, but, because one is structured and one is serious, and the other one's like more of immersive and fun. But what if that divide never really needed to exist in the first place? Well, today I'm joined by someone who is actively challenging that idea, and let us get him on board. There we go. We have Skyler Scarlett, who is the founder of GameClass, an AI-powered education platform that transforms the games, sports, and media. Students already love into engaging standards aligned lessons in 15 seconds or less. After building a business that was shut down during COVID, Scarlett rediscovered gaming and noticed a clear pattern. When teams communicated well, they won. And when they didn't, they lost. That insight sparked GameClass, built on the belief that the most powerful way to teach is through content students already care about. And GameClass combines AI with intuitive editing tools, allowing educators and students to instantly convert any media into structured, high quality lessons or create their own learning experiences around their favorite content. Well, it's an honor to have you on the podcast today, Skylar. So, how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm good. I got my coffee ready to go. I have two young girls, so I don't get a whole lot of sleep,
Uh oh.
but hopefully my brain's still working because I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for being here today. Well, let's get it started. So, for my first question for you, we all know that every meaningful idea usually starts with a very specific moment of clarity. You've spoken about rediscovering gaming and noticing how communication directly impacted success within teams. I find that really fascinating because it's a very simple observation, yet it carries so much depth. So, can you take us back to that exact moment when this shifted from being, just an interesting insight to something that felt like this needs to exist in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years, and my last business before GameClass, I was in the health club space. During COVID in California, I couldn't even go into the health club for a year. So I had more time to actually play video games again. And when I was playing this game, I was blown away by what I was seeing. I play video games. I'm a '90s kid, and I'm pretty good at video games. But I'm always pretty good because I'm very strategic. I think about my moves. I'm not always the fastest with the controller, but I'm very clever with my movement. And it always blew me away when I'd watch these players do these unbelievably smart moves, but really not realize what they were doing. So in my game, particularly, I could realize that when communication was really solid, team did really well. Communication broke down, team did really poorly. There was a direct correlation, and it was, every video game can be recorded these days. So you could take a 5-minute recording, study it, probably learn more about communication than any other method. So that's really how I got the idea for Game Class, was just being blown away by what I was seeing, watching people communicate playing video games.
That is really interesting, honestly, because that shows how you connected, the strategic and communicative aspects of gaming to real world teamwork. And it's fascinating to see moments that, before launching Game Class, while simply playing and observing how people interacted in games actually revealed a much bigger need. That a healthy collaboration and clever communication is just as vital outside the game as they are within it. So, thank you for sharing that. So, it feels like for decades we've almost conditioned ourselves to believing that if something is fun, it can't be serious learning. And if it's learning, it probably won't be fun. So, why do you think this divide exists so strongly in the education systems? And more importantly, when we actually remove that boundary, what changes in the way people engage, retain, and even value what they're learning?
I think education system hasn't really changed for like almost 100 years, right? It's so structured. It's so you do this, everyone does this. But when you get into the real world, people have very defined roles. They don't all do the same thing. So it's actually the opposite of what education teaches you. And like entrepreneurship, there's nothing about the education system in the US that teaches you to be an entrepreneur. Nothing. I had to learn how to be an entrepreneur in the field. I look back to elementary school, middle school, and high school and go, wow, we didn't learn any of this. And I think it's that structure and that way of doing things. It's just you get in the pattern of it, right? And you don't like to try new things. So I think it's a large part of just the way the system's always been. And I think everyone knows we need that system to change a little bit. And it's not just that part, it's a lot of things, right? But that part's a huge part that maybe we should be doing things differently than making the same mistake over and over again.
That is really well said once again, because I too believe the same point. The education system, though there are like, small changes here and there that people try to implement, but it's always more about the collective impact. That if everybody wants to bring change together, like, of course, change does not happen in isolation. It's when everyone works together. And to have that work out, it's people bringing in different ideas at the table and actually implementing it. It's not about just, talking that, yes, this is something that we need to do. But instead of being those people who demand for it, be the person who actually wants to do it and, adapts and, of course, implements it in the future. And that really shows the realities of today's world, that we need, of course, preparation part should have been decades ago. But even if that's not been the case, there's always more time to think of what could be done now rather than thinking of like what wasn't done before. And that really shows that today's entrepreneurs need to, and of course, not just entrepreneurs, every single human being needs to learn the skill sets, because we don't know what kind of jobs will exist in the future. So it's always great to have the future ready work skill sets, which are all about adapting, learning, sharing, and going together with people.
Absolutely. And I think a part of it's human psychology, which I'm obsessed with human psychology. My daughter, who's almost 4 now, if I tell her to do something, she's anti-authority, right? But if I ask her to help me or I switch up how I tell it, all of a sudden she'll do what I wanted her to do, right? So the thing about fun and learning, it's like most students don't want to have to go somewhere and then have to do something. They'd rather stay where they are and do what they want to do. So when you say separate fun and learning, right, the system separates them, and it's psychology, right? You can learn so much if we just let them learn in what they want to learn and not try to force them into this small space and go, okay, no, you have to learn this way.
Absolutely. And of course, it's always great to see them discover their patterns of learning. And then when the maybe educators discover that, they can use those similar methods for engaging them. So let them go with the flow and be the person who realizes their patterns rather than make them realize that this is how I learn. So it should be all natural. But yes, that is true. Right. So, what I really find interesting about GameClass is that it's not just a tool, it is a very big statement about how learning should happen. So, from your perspective, what does GameClass understand about how people naturally learn than that the traditional systems often overlook? And I want to go a step deeper here. Are we actually redesigning education in a fundamental way, or are we making the existing system more engaging and accessible through a different lens?
I think GameClass solves learning motivation and relatability. Why does someone want to learn? How does it relate to them right now? Financial literacy is something I always bring up because GameClass works so well with financial literacy, right? And one of the things is I always talk to these companies and they won't touch financial literacy in elementary school. I'm like, why wouldn't you touch elementary school? That's the number one time you should try to teach financial literacy when they're young. And they're like, well, how do you relate mortgages, insurance to a third grader? And it makes sense. It's very difficult, right? But you can take a video game, their favorite character, and explain, okay, well, what if the character got hurt? Or what if they wanted to buy this building over here? All of a sudden, these things that were so scary to explain aren't so scary anymore. So I think GameClass is a great way to relate things and then motivate people to learn in things that they actually care about. And to your point, what I think people don't understand about GameClass is we basically could take any PowerPoint slide, presentation, lesson plan, even a screenshot of what you're teaching today, and then use that to make it more fun and exciting and relatable. So it's not a complete revamp. I think nobody would be interested in a revamp. It's just too exhausting. It's too much work. It's, I have, these standards I have to use. I already have all this lesson material. Well, GameClass can just take what you have and then flip it on its head. Standards will be there. What you need to teach will be there, but the fun and the relatability, like, will help you get there.
That honestly sounds really cool and reminds me of like how I've been using Minecraft and games as well for the similar purpose to basically not, change the way you're learning or change the concept of what you're learning. It's just changing the environment. And I love how you really describe that. It shows how game class goes beyond adding a fun layer to learning. And it's about not about rebranding education, but rather than like flipping it on its head, like you said. So learning feels approachable and even exciting. And I think that point about financial literacy is really spot on because when you take something that usually feels really intimidating and you turn that into an experience where suddenly people start caring about it, they relate to it, and they actually want to understand it. And that shift from fear to curiosity is a really powerful change, and that shows that learning happens when you have the right environment and the right tools to learn. It's not a concept that depends on like when or what you're learning, it's just how you learn and how you implement the learning in the classrooms.
Absolutely. It's funny. I look back at like my high school, middle school. I remember like when we had the movies in class. I know that's so funny, but like that's what I remember is when they brought a movie into the classroom. And the best teachers weren't just like, okay, I'm going to sit back, watch a movie. They were trying to explain things through movies. I love film. So when movies were brought into the classroom and they tried to explain things I wasn't understanding, all of a sudden I would get it just from watching a movie that I liked. And go, oh, the character did this, and this is what you're trying to explain. That's what still resonates, 10 years later is the movies that were in class. And those were such a small portion. I'm trying to change that because I know it's one of the most effective ways to learn.
Absolutely.
So I don't even know if you knew this, but we do more than video games now. We do any audio media. So movies, TV shows, sports, even if it was a social media video, we could use it to teach.
That is really cool. Imagine a basketball player not wanting to learn math, but then can learn math through a basketball video, maybe like talking about angles when you're shooting. So I think that's really cool. It's just helping students understand what's the best way they want to learn and giving them those avenues, which is really cool.
Thank you.
Right. So moving on to my next question for you. There's, always this tension when we talk about AI in creative or learning spaces. On one hand, yes, it can unlock speed and scale, but on the other, there's always a concern that it might standardize experiences too much. So when it comes to something like game class, where learning experiences can be generated almost instantly, do you see automation as something that risks reducing creativity, or does it actually expand creative possibilities for both educators and students?
Well, you and I could spend an hour talking about just this because one, I have an AI patent. I'm very proud of it because it's, one of the hardest patents to get. And it's really important for game class that we have it. But I think it's both. And what I mean is we spent so long, pulled our hair out trying to build an editor that anyone could use. And then we found out that, even though we tried to make it as easy as possible, most teachers don't want to come home after a long day at school and create something, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. And I respect that and understand that. For students, I'd way prefer that students be creative and learn that way than trying to prompt a video. So I hope that on game class schools, after school programs, they want to see the students be creative and spend time learning in things they love and using draw and coming up with these really awesome lessons to teach other students. However, the stuff that we're doing right now behind the scenes, I think is just such a game changer. I'm like excited to tell you about it. So we got it to a point where I'll say within a month, you can take any sport, video game, or TV show, and in 3 seconds, create a quiz. And in 15 seconds, create a lesson with 3, 10, 15 overlays that are beautiful, that the text all accurate to what's on the screen. So it's not random. It literally talks about what happened in the clip, and we can do it at that speed, meaning we can basically personalize for any student. And what that means is, I see it on LinkedIn, everyone's like, oh, we have to meet learners where they are. We have to find what they like, right? That is almost impossible when you have 30, 50 students in a classroom. But if you have game class where you can use automation and AI, we could literally in 10 minutes have a lesson for every single student in the class that they love. One student gets the sport they love, the other student gets the video game they love, the other student gets the movie they love. Everybody wins. That's not possible without AI and automation. It's just not possible. You can't do it. With our system and the tools we have, it's a completely new category that I think will blow people's mind when they see it.
And that sounds really compelling, to be honest. And the way you framed it, like the goal isn't to replace creativity with automation, but to remove the friction that stops teachers and students from getting to the creative part in the first place. So, like you said, when a lesson or quiz can be generated from a short clip in seconds, it means educators really spend less time wrestling with tools and more time adapting, personalizing, and adding their own voice to it and their own charm to it with the context. And the student side, it's like what you're describing actually opens up space for them to be more artistic and inventive with how they respond rather than consuming a static worksheet or a slideshow. And that really sounds cool, to be honest, because I saw what you had posted on LinkedIn that you can actually create whole lessons from just a clip that you like and you think you relate to it, you upload and you have the lesson. And that is a really, I think, one of the best examples that show personalization of learning. And if you're using AI and automation, then why not use it for good? And this is a really good example of that.
Two more points I want to make because I think it's important. I'd love to hear your thoughts. One, we use real content. AI is just cluttered with fake content everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Generated fake. Nothing we use is fake. If you're watching a basketball clip, it's the actual clip of the game that
Yeah.
the student watched. It's the video game of them that they actually played it with a controller. It would look the same. So nothing's fake. And two, you can go in and edit anything that's created. If I ask AI to make an image and I don't like it, I might spend 10 minutes regenerating the image until it gets it right. With us, if you don't like it, you can go to the editor and switch a question out, add a question, fix something. You have we built a tool to be able to do this. So there's so many wrappers out there. Ours couldn't be a wrapper. We had to build our own editor, connect it to AI, and have all this stuff happen behind the scenes. I think that is very powerful.
Indeed, and that's the catch, to be honest, because it's like the real stuff, and you get it for the real people. So no AI clips involved. That's actually a really good point. Thank you for mentioning that. So since like you mentioned that you've played tons of video games, do you have a favorite story mode game that you've played?
I'm almost embarrassed to tell you. I think I own almost every video game in existence. One, because I had so many games, and two, I wanted to buy them for GameClass to create content.
Yep.
So on GameClass, we have over 3,000 video game clips anyone can use. That sounds crazy. I put all those on there myself. That means I had to have the game, be up at 1, 2 in the morning, record a 5-minute, 3-minute clip, and just put tons of content on there. So I own, I think, more video games than maybe any other human in the world. And I think I could be in the Guinness World Book of Records for that. I really do have almost all the video games. Now, story games, there's a lot of good ones. That's a really hard one to answer. I do love Portal 2. It's a puzzle physics game that actually surprisingly has a phenomenal science fiction story to it. So if you had to say choose one story, maybe I would choose that one.
That's a pretty cool game, to be honest. Like if I were to choose, of course, like I cannot deny Hogwarts Legacy. That is like because I'm a big Potterhead.
Great
But I
game
also
too. That's a good choice.
Yep. And also like I really enjoyed playing Detroit, Becoming Human.
Oh,
I think that
love
game
that
that
game.
game gave me such like powerful choices. That really shows, what kind of person you are when you're playing.
That
And
game's amazing. The fact that you get to choose the path, it really hasn't been done the same way since in the graphics. And I think that's a phenomenal choice. I love science fiction, so I loved that game so much.
likewise, that is so true. And like since I'm also currently working on my own game idea, I think that game really inspired a lot of the kind of story I want to bring into my game. And of course, the graphics were really good. And I feel like the kind of games you actually play, it shows the kind of person you are and the kind of character you turn out into.
Oh,
So
I
I
love that
think
you're working on that. And I think have you seen there's so much controversy on AI in video games, right?
yeah.
And I get it, but part of the use case could be like if you're making a story game where the paths change, imagine using AI to change the paths into so many versions, right? To me, that's a cool use case of AI in video games. Without that, you wouldn't have the time to do so many paths, right?
That is true.
If you use AI, now you have so many paths the player can go down.
Absolutely. It's just like how I think this is going to help you get your creative side channelized, bringing to like what you said earlier, that it's going to get the scratch work done for you. You just have to focus on what you want to bring into the game idea rather than,
Absolutely.
starting everything from scratch. Because now you can actually use even Blender with Claude. So all you have to do is like get the idea there. You can make enhancing stuff later, but yeah, the scratch work can be done because you won't want to spend like 2 years building a game. You
No,
want to get it done as soon as possible with the best creative side added and the best outcome in the end. And that's the goal.
absolutely.
Yep. Right. Thank you so much for sharing. And I, of course, recommend everybody to check that game out as well if you haven't. Interesting. So when it comes to building something ambitious, especially after, going through something as difficult as having a previous business shut down, it's of course not just part of the professional journey, but a very personal one. So in the middle of all innovation, pressure, and scale that you've been through, what always keeps you grounded and what helps you stay connected to why you started in the first place? And this is something that I always relate to, that remember why you started. So what's that for you?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely passion, for sure. I mean, I think, we've been building GameClass for a long time. It's really difficult to build something new. It's one of the hardest startups you can do. In fact, if people come to me and ask me about startups, and I speak at a lot of schools, I say, if you just want to make money or something, do something boring, really boring, solve a boring problem. Go to like Well Founder, look at the jobs. They're all, I hate to say this, so many of them are just very boring ideas. None of them are like new platform, new this. They don't exist because they're not there. Boring ideas really are the easiest. If you want to change the world and bring out a new platform, you better be in for the long haul because nothing's going to be fast. And there's going to be so much education you have to do about why you're bringing something different, getting the idea out there, getting people comfortable with it. So it's been a really wild journey. And I think without passion, you leave way before something can even work. And also that means I have a dev team, right? I have to keep them passionate in the idea as well of like, why are we building this? Where are we going? And let's forget about how hard it is to get there and why we're doing it. I think we all love the idea of making the world smarter. When you're more educated, when you're smarter, you treat people better, you travel more, you make more money. As a father, one of the most important things for me as a dad is to teach my daughters. So for me personally, this is such a passion project. Without that passion, there's no way I'm still doing the 3 a.m. nights. There's no way I'm still doing all the networking, all this stuff. It's just so hard. And ed tech is one of the hardest spaces. Everyone told me, don't go into ed tech. And I'm like, oh, well, startups are hard, but I get what they're saying. It's a really difficult space. It's so difficult. So I think passion is the only thing that can really keep a new innovative idea going. If you're not truly passionate, there's just no way it's going to work.
That is really well said and very relatable as well. It reminds me, like I believe in the Japanese technique of ikigai. What makes you get up and get out of your bed every day? Your passion, mission, vocation, and something that you care about, something that you can give to the world, and something that you are in and out. So I think that really shows that if you want to make money, of course you can go for something that is pretty, like you said, boring and with shallow motivation. But if you are a person who wants to change the world, who envisions different things which are going to help people, get better and have better facilities, then it's always important that you remember, like you said, why this problem matters to you and where do you want to take this if it works out, and how hard was it to get this far, and what struggles would feel wasted if you just quit on a shallow win. So that is a really good motivation to give yourself whenever you have those bad days. But I think, like, especially if I relate to what you said, it's always about remembering the people who've shaped your journey as well. So if you've had like a very positive environment of people who've rooted for you, so there's a reason that they see something in you. But also remember, that you see something in yourself as well. That if you are not going to support yourself, then nobody will. So it's great to be grateful to others, but also being grateful to yourself that you made it that far, and always have that passion and willpower to to have a vision that creates like a mission for you to change the world.
It's a great point. I think we've had so many champions for GameClass. That's been inspiring. I've had a lot of startups, had a startup where people are so excited. They know there's something so good there. And they're like, there's a puzzle there, put it together because you're onto something so great right now. Other startups, I don't think I've ever had that. I've had probably 3,000 meetings for GameClass, people wanting to come and talk to me about it, which in other startups, it was so hard to get on a phone call or a Zoom or a Google Meet with somebody. So people are so excited about this. And that does get me excited. It really does. To see how excited about this concept other people are is very inspiring to me.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So before we wrap up today's discussion, if we move fast forward 5 years, given how quickly AI and education are evolving, that's not a long time. What do you think will feel most primitive about what we are building and using today, including, the current version of GameClass?
I mean, every 6 months, it's like a new company. Like you said, like we're growing with AI that's growing at a rate that is impossible to follow. We've built things where after 3 or 4 months, we had to scrape it because then AI released something that was free and better than we were building in a new tab on a web browser. Just to give you an example, I think for GameClass, I've always wanted to go here, and I think that we'll do GameClass the way we're doing it with recorded clips, but in 5 years, you'll see us in platforms for live content. What I mean is if your kid is watching Netflix, they'll be in education mode. So when they argue with you that they want, to stay watching, say, okay, 30 more minutes, but you're turning on education mode. They'll go to a setting and then our overlays and our teaching will be part of the viewing experience. So they're learning through what they love as they watch it live. Same thing with video games. Nintendo's kind of a big get, but can you imagine on your Nintendo Switch where you're playing Mario Kart, you go to the settings, you turn on education mode, Mario Kart is playing, probability comes in, and now you have you're learning as you're playing. Just doesn't get any better than that. I think for schools, it's hard to do that because you're limited by hardware and time. But when you're at home, there's no better way to learn than when you're actively playing or watching rather than recorded. So to me, that's where I hope we see GameClass, and that will require a lot of partnerships and a lot of learning. I think we're learning every day about how do you balance entertainment and education? Got to do both, right? If we're too much education, they're like, you're tricking us. This is the same thing we were doing in school. And if you're too much entertainment, you don't have the education part. So as we master that and then we collect that data, we can bring that data into the live experience. So we're not ruining the entertainment thing, but you're learning. I know there's a lot of fatigue on screen time AI, and I get it because I also care about how much screen time my daughter has. But also everyone says, wow, your 4-year-old is one of the smartest girls we've ever seen, right? When she was really young, we had her watching Miss Rachel. So I'm not super anti-digital. Like she learned so much watching Miss Rachel when she was young. I think there's good and bad screen time. Good screen time is not over excessive length, but also you're learning when you're watching it. And bad screen time is you're mindlessly tuning out. It's quick cutting constantly. That can't be good on your brain. So, I'm very much in the balance in the middle part of that, right? So I think, as we go, there's no turning back. We're in the technology, this is technology everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So GameClass could be literally in any platform, software, you name it. And this be a setting. Maybe 2% of the users use it, but that's huge.
Absolutely. And that sounds very implementable and very practical to me to see live classes expect education mode where video platforms, games, even in VR, AR spaces, with you can see everything take up the education element to it, where people are learning while gaming, learning while watching a movie. Why not? And you talked about good and bad screen time. I think that's really important. The viewers who are watching the podcast, you're having a very good screen time right now because you're getting to learn from Skyler here. And I think it's all about maintaining a balance as well, that you're staying connected to who you are and what you want to be. But it's also important that you take out time so that you don't feel burnt out later on. So it's always great to relax, and then when you have that personal time where you get to connect, self-reflect, be grateful, you can come back with amazing ideas. So yes, of course, I feel it's a pretty cool idea, and today's discussion has, of course, explored the gamified education platform's potential for GameClass, and that really shows, when you have people working together and they have passion for something, you can create great stuff. So it's all about having the deeper motivation to innovate and become a better person who creates better spaces for people around. So thank you so much for all your time today, Skyler.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure speaking with you and being on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining and tuning in for today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one teach them. Have a nice day.